Okay, thank you all so much for coming. Seriously, isn't this a great theatre? It's fabulous. I was really happy this morning when I saw this theatre because it, to me, absolutely, Penny and Sally and the TASA team and the university team have chosen a really good place for what it is that we are going to achieve with this keynote. Thank you. Can I also say thank you very much to friends and colleagues, and we're getting to know each other as friends and colleagues. So Dr. Davina Woods, Professor Shaun Wilson, Professor Kim Humphery, and my name's Joanne Schmider. So, geez, there's stories of how this keynote came about. There's stories to how we came to be here, isn't there? All right? But we haven't really got time to tell all of those stories. Just know that there's so many stories just to setting this up in this way. It's incredible stories, isn't it? Can I also introduce and say thank you very much to our graphic scribe, Jessamy, from Think in Colour. So because we're trying to do this as a yarning exercise, adding that, look, I've said to Davina, it seems to be my favourite word today, organicness. You know, Jessamy is going to add a whole element to that as well, in just trying to be able to reach into, if I'm going to be technical, a kind of a relational space of a keynote. A little bit different, hey? This is not a question and answer panel. It's not a delivery per se. It really is, and you can see us from all different angles, looking in on a yarn and participating in a yarn. So can you put up your hand, please, people with us? First of all, if you reckon that you've participated in Indigenous yarning of any way, kind, come on, we need to see the hands, seriously. Oh, we've got a challenge. There's lots of people. So if you have participated, you have a sense of how to try and help achieve this. You have a bit of a sense of responsibility then, please, about helping the yarning. Can you put up your hand, everybody who's participated in engaging with communities in your work? And Davina's put up her hand twice. That's this. Did we almost? Can the original people keep your hand up? Can you put your hand up again? Sorry. Indigenous yarning. Now let's add to that about engaging with any communities in your work. Brilliant. Seriously, acknowledge that amongst yourselves. These shades and shades and shades. Please have a look at what the pamphlet is, the booklet is in your hand, and turn just to the front page. A little bit about this concept of yarning. You can see that we've talked a little bit in there about an etiquette to it. There's a practice to it, certainly. And then a few pages along, in the join, is the first sharing with you about Indigenous yarning, and then a little bit of references over the page. When I talked with a colleague of mine who looked at Indigenous yarning with her PhD, she said, you know, you really also got to add this concept of story work to it, to emphasise that other way, that old way about yarning, which was about telling stories, and the stories themselves having truthfulness in them. Dilu, where are you, if you are here? Dilu from ANU? Okay. Dilu shared with me yesterday that this was so much like the longhouse concepts that they have in PNG culture. You know, at a certain time of their lives, they spend time in a structured environment where they tell stories, where they hear the stories, where they get to continue the stories. I'm going to invite each of you, if you can turn your mics on, please, because we're going to have to hold our mics like this with us too as well, to share a little bit about your understanding of yarning. You've got a mic there somewhere, or have I pinched yours?
Oh, is it? Okay, great.
I thought that there were 4 mics up here. Has one of them disappeared? Thank you, Penny. No, we're not allowed to use those ones right at the back.
We can share.
There'll be one somewhere. We'll share.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Kim.
So I get to start off, do I? Okay. Well, I learned a couple of days ago that I was going to be on this yarning circle.
Just this is about yarning.
I
Just
know.
an observation about
And I'm going to...
Sorry.
Yeah. And I'm, really happy to be here. What I want to say is I'm not here as president of TASA. I'm here because my research experience, my research career as a social researcher has been really formatively framed by working with Indigenous colleagues and in Indigenous communities. So that's why I'm here. And I want to talk about a little bit about that as a way of offering a story to start off with. But I also want to put it in context, which is that when white fellas, and I use that term very deliberately here, talk about, in yarning circles, which I'm used to, talk about our experience, it can come across, particularly in urban context, as a kind of credentialism, a kind of performativity, which you referred to in your notes for this keynote. And TASA doesn't want to get into that performativity around indigenising the curriculum. We want to do it. We don't want to perform it. We don't want to credentialise ourselves by indulging in that. And when white fellas talk about our experience, you can come across as someone who suddenly is claiming that you know Indigenous cultures, you know the communities you've worked in. You don't ever do that. So let me just tell you why I'm here. 25 years ago, I found myself in Darwin.
We're going to go into that in the next bit.
In the next bit, okay. I'm so glad you're here because...
And we've been adaptive the whole way through as well.
We have, yeah. So we're winging it to some extent here, but that's a yarn, yeah? That's a yarn.
Yeah.
So
Davina, you want to share about just like a gem of wisdom?
Because I wasn't here for the acknowledgement, I'd just like to start off with saying that I acknowledge the fact that I'm on the country of the Wurundjeri people, and I've been fortunate enough living here for 30 years to share the knowledge of many Kulin peoples. Okay, so when I was doing my PhD, I visited with communities in far north Queensland and yarned with elders there, heard stories about colonial times, about more recent times, and also was gifted a couple of dreaming stories. Also, I believe that my extended family, which I just think of as family, is also a community. So I've participated in that sort of yarning all of my life.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. You can hear. Thank you. Just responding to yarning and what it has come to mean, I would say it's partly reflected what I've been learning is my connection to you based on our now common connection to far north Queensland and I guess what we call the Atherton Tablelands and the traditional lands there. I think the thing I wanted to say about especially my very limited experience with yarning the other day is connection through meaning and meaning through connection, which came across as the thing I was really responding to. And far north Queensland adds connection and meaning to
thank you.
my connection to you.
That really allows me to reinforce the very simple point that I was going to make, when we read some of the material about yarning, and sometimes the experience of yarning, it kind of feels as if, when are we going to get there? And we don't quite ever really get to where it might have been thought that we were going to go to as well. But the point is that you can have just relaxing yarning around a campfire, whatever. Things just happen as they happen, Sometimes you get to have some pretty serious conversations, but you can have research yarning, and really what we're doing today is that sense of meaningful yarning, that there is actually a point to it. So what we are going to do, the plan of action, is up on the left-hand side. So we're going to reintroduce ourselves, and then we're going to have a look at our job for today, what you saw in the abstract, basically. And then we're going to come to, well, what does it mean? We are actually going to spend a bit of time introducing ourselves, because you don't ever really engage in yarning, isn't it, hey, without proper knowing each other. So Davina and I have known each other since our 20s. We didn't have grey hair. And we've worked together professionally, changing the education system in Australia. Hey, can we claim that? We can. We can. As Shaun said, we know a little bit about each other. Not a lot, isn't it? We do have connection far north Queensland, Kim, we spent about maybe 2 or 3 years connecting with each other. So we're just going to introduce ourselves to each other just a little bit more, and share that sense of what is it, what are some of the threads that are important to us that we bring to this conversation. Before we do that, if I get this working, I'm going to introduce a couple of people who are not here with us around this gum leaves with us here. Morgan Carter has been agreed to be involved with TASA in TASA's agenda, probably about a year now. She's been doing the research about indigenising curricula across Australia. Morgan announced to us, shared with us about 3 months ago, I think it might have been that, that she was pregnant. Can we tell you, Morgan is absolutely imminent. Saturday, cannot do the keynote. She's breached. She's been breached the whole time. Bed rest. And can we also please acknowledge the wonderful Emma J, who's pictured in my country, Andrew, on the right-hand side. Professor Emma J. Gavin has also agreed to be part of the TASA network. And Emma J was going to be a discussant here. And Andrew, that's all right that we can share that with people, hey? Emma is now appointed with the Andrews National Centre for Reconciliation, Truth and Justice as a Director for Indigenous Engagement globally, and has just been at the amazing WIPSI conference, World Indigenous Peoples Conference, Education, and a few more, and had a stroke on the plane coming home. So proper bed rest again. So just pause for a moment and just think about these two wonderful people as part of this preparation and conversation and developments as well. So, Shaun, we're going to start with you, if that's all right. And you just tell me when you want me to flip. Can't you? You can sit up there. Just tell me when you want me to flip.
Yeah, no, that's good. As I said earlier, my connection to Joanne comes largely through TASA, but it also comes from the fact that we are kind of neighbours, or at slightly different ends of this remarkable part of North Queensland. And this is taken from a place I live as much time as I can get away from Macquarie University, which is a small area in the northern part of the Atherton Tablelands, so not quite Cape York Peninsula. And so that's a bit further, and you can see it's very green there. And in the so this is a little township called Gelatin, which means, I understand in the traditional language, small creek or little creek, and I assume it refers to Bushy Creek, which is truly magnificent stream that runs out of Mount Lewis National Park, which is coastal tropical rainforest and goes through down eventually to the coast. And it's a great place to swim around this time of year. As you know, it's getting very hot and humid, and that's the best way you can cool off in hot weather.
Want me to go next one?
Just one sec. That is the land of the Koko Yalangi people, which extends right down to the areas that we know as Mossman and Port Douglas and so on. But this is in the mountains there. And if you like birds, which I do, this is the time that the kingfishers come from New Zealand, from New Guinea. So they've come over from West Dillon, Buff Preston, Paradise kingfishers over there at the moment. They've got the really long streamer tails. Am I talking too long? That's what I am.
Probably.
So that's from my place. You see, normally covered in rain. And as Joanne constantly says, if you want rainforest, you need rain. So it's a very beautiful part of the world, and I'm very attached to it. Yeah. Two other places.
Just a couple of minutes there, rainforest now.
Yeah, so this is another place which I have tremendous love for. It's in Cape York Peninsula. I think it's pronounced Kutinipayamu National Park. It used to be known as Iron Range. A magnificent coastal rainforest on the eastern part of Cape York Peninsula, and you see lots of birds that interact between New Guinea and Northern Australia. So as you can see, some of them you'd know would be the palm cockatoo, which is the most dramatic of all the birds in that area. And the last one is a totally different climate in the south of Australia on what's known as...
It's gone back the other way.
Doesn't matter. I can tell you about it. It was, yes, that's Bangala, the Bangala people of what's known as the Eyre Peninsula, and this is Lincoln National Park. It's a much cooler climate, and great for bird watching, but also great white sharks and very different climate. So they're the places of connection that I have, and the one I share with you is obviously the traditional lands of what are the Atherton Tablelands now.
So I get the sense about what you're bringing to this conversation is a very deep appreciation, connection in country, in places in Australia. These places here, some of which we have in connection.
The most important thing to me, yeah.
Thank you. Davina, we come to you next, if that's okay.
Okay, so you can see the black and white photograph was taken in the early 1960s. I was born in the late 1950s. I can see myself sitting on my nana's lap. That's my community I was born into, and many of you would think of it as an extended family, and for me it's just family. And unfortunately, Uncle Henry's branch of that family are missing in that photo. I don't know why. And then on the right of the family that I was born into is my family down here, without including my classificatory sisters and their kids, but the two children that I've born, my daughter and my son and myself, on the day that I graduated from with my PhD. So communities sort of can be big and small. And here we've got on the left-hand side, Deepwater Bend, which is the family name for the area I grew up in. It was actually the name given to it at the time, but now they've changed it to something like Tichy-Tambo. And on the right-hand side is a split photograph. One with the straggly trees is showing the slope of the Hodgkinson River, and the other is the top level of the Hodgkinson River. And in the background is, and I'm going to have to admit my colonised tongue will not allow me to pronounce the name of this mountain correctly, but I'll have a go, Nagabulgan. Non-Indigenous people call it Mount Mulligan. My country, my ancestral country, incorporates the Hodgkinson River and Nagabulgan. The photograph at the top is the house that my dad built out of fibro and wood down at Deepwater Bend. And then you can see an aerial and a frontage view of my home that I live in at Roxburgh Park here in Melbourne. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say that where I lived as a child is on Turrbal country. Turrbal and Jagera are the two groups from the Brisbane area. Turrbal's on the very northeast. And I live still on Wurundjeri country out at Roxburgh Park.
Thank you. So again, I think that you echo some of what Shaun's brought in, about that connection with country. You've added in with the generations, behind us and coming forward too as well. Yeah, and the places in which we live these days. Yeah. Kim, the next one is you. Oh, look, I'm so sorry. I'll get this correct. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. Thanks, Davina and Shaun. I'm going to go back to a pre-yarn that we had, which is that we were talking about, indigenising sociology, and also talking about the way in which that really comes from an experiential thing, rather than an A4 page with a set of protocols that we follow. Yeah, and that's very much how I've come to work with Indigenous people and have a sense of what Indigenous knowledges do with sociology, do for sociology. And you put a map up for me, which is good, because it does indicate that the enormity of the Northern Territory. And what we don't see on that map is that it's like Europe. It's just full of nations, absolutely full of nations. And I've had the privilege of working in a number of those nations. And I'm going to mention three. So 25 years ago, I worked in a community called Warrawee, which is on South Goulburn Island, off the coast of the north coast of Arnhem Land. You can't see it on the map, but it's way up the top. And that's the Morn language group. I also had the privilege of working down in the Tanami Desert, so right down in the centre of the territory, in a Warlpiri community called Lajamanu. And that's a sister community to a community that you might have heard of here, which is Yuendamu. So it's a Warlpiri community. And then more recently, because I've just stopped working in Darwin and come back down to Melbourne, I worked very closely in another island community, another saltwater people community, Galawinku, Elcho Island off the coast of northeast Arnhem Land. And that kind of drew that experience together, because in that community I got adopted into a family, and that was not only a privilege, but it comes with obligations, and it absolutely concretised my experience of what we're calling that indigenisation process. And I think that's where that sense of what indigenisation means comes from. So I now have suddenly many more sisters and grandchildren than I had when I lived down here. Fantastic.
And Davina, we had a yarn about that adoption process over a tea this morning. And I'm really, Kim really brings that understanding about how people use that to structure you in socially, and every which way within a community, So we're only getting glimpses of what we bring to it, and it's, obviously, we're just sharing a little bit. So for me, thank you.
Was that an invitation for me to speak about the person who I don't like because I believe they use their kinship?
No, we'll leave that one.
Okay.
Okay, so introducing me. So see the green one on the left-hand side there? If you count from the top down, so there's one big green area, that's proper my country. That's where my people used to hop over the edge there to escape being rounded up and taken off into missions and reserves, This is all my traditional country. The people down the end offered us that lovely area for $1.1 million or something. I can't afford that, seriously. So if you come back to a tiny little green bit and then you see a little bit of scrub before you see that next big area of green, all right? Well, actually I live on 3 acres, right there. And I did have to buy it back Western Way, but it has got the concrete slab of the house that my white grandfather built for my Aboriginal grandmother, who in those days, he ended up marrying, which is absolutely bloody amazing. It was actually in her name for a tiny bit of time. Then the big green area, well, you know, there's stories and stories and stories, but you can see this is this southern end of the tablelands. I really love Danny Mellor's work. A little bit above that, Danny's not quite sure. They know that they're tablelands connections, but again, you know, sometimes we're not able to work these things out. So we kind of said to Danny, we'll adopt you, we'll adopt you. He's brilliant. But look at that imposition there of the colonial, with the people in the hut. Get it? Yeah, he's quite interesting with his stuff. Milla Waterfall, I've seen that photo on Barbie Goes to Brazil, a booklet. It's one of, seriously, if we got even 20 cents for every photograph that was ever taken of that photo, it does actually inspire my personal practice framework, which I appreciate comes from the social work discipline. There's lots of meaning in that painting on the right-hand side. There's a whole stuff behind those photos to the left. I'm not sharing all of that with you, but it's basically the streams of the water, as you can see, and just 3 wisdoms that I try and teach my children. The first 4, really, if I'm going to name standpoint, and I published that with you, Andrew, and these are some of the standpoint that I reckon that I bring to this discussion. So, that's a tiny little glimpse about all of that relational work that we would do in setting up to be able to nut out something, isn't it, you know? But we said that our job here, so that our job within this circle is we're actually, and this is the first time for us, really looking at what are the findings of the mapping project that TASA Executive conceived 3 or 4 years ago. And we're going to have a look at those recommendations that Morgan has provided. And we're going to use those. You know, there's stories and stories and stories, we said, hey. So one of the stories from one of Kim's predecessors, and some of current TASA were around at that time with a previous TASA president. TASA got absolutely solidly challenged by a very well-known senior Indigenous academic, and TASA was basically told that, you know, the work that it has to do is to unpack a paradigm shift. So we're going to try and have a look at that through the lens of that mapping project. And the abstract talks about, we're going to launch something very special as part of this as well. So let's have a look at the mapping of Indigenisation project. I'm going to only bring to it this much of what Morgan could have brought to it, because she did it. So I'm representing a little bit her, just in a very brief way, if that's all right. Is that okay? Yeah. So there's 43 universities across Australia. Interestingly, she said one of them's not really functioning. Oh, I shouldn't name that, should I? Maybe we say that they're all not functioning well. Anyway, never mind. So Morgan and an Indigenous researcher, another Indigenous research assistant that TASA engaged, they did a desktop mapping basically of what was advertised as the, just within sociology, not within social work, just sociology, what was advertised as courses, majors, minors, units, just anything that you could find in the public arena from those universities. A survey was sent out through TASA and direct to the universities, you know, the Indigenous units and the sociology departments, etc. And people were asked to respond. The numbers was really small. So for all of you who have added to the storyboard here, the story wall, this is really serious
addition to this work about what's going on where. So the survey responses were small, and then Morgan picked up on some of those survey responses and interviewed those people. They weren't, some people weren't even in the discipline. We might have picked up a couple of Indigenous people who weren't. So 3 key findings. You know, when the Indigenous team had a look at the definition of sociology, we just looked up Wikipedia. We were good researchers, aren't we? We looked up Wikipedia. And you know that Wikipedia lists 126 dimensions to sociology. I've got no idea what figurational sociology is, but I really love jealousy sociology. The discipline is incredibly broad. All right? She says misconceived. You know, Davina said, oh, I don't know if I can speak from a sociology point of view. When I was asked about joining TASA, I said, I'm not a sociologist. We were educators. Hello? You know? Societal change absolutely was our vision, wasn't it, Davina?
Absolutely.
Right? And then she's saying most of what she was able to pick up on was within HAS. The second finding, networks. And then you can see the third finding. So I'm not going to ask you to comment straight away. I want to share the recommendations, if that's all right. But can you keep these in your head, maybe? Maybe if, Jessamy, if you wipe it out in a few minutes, if you just pick up discipline or question mark, or I don't know. The second one I think is collaboration. And the third one, Indigenous-led plus allyship. Are they good summary points? Yeah. Yeah? All right, so let's go to the recommendations from the research. Terrible. Oh, don't they tell you always be careful about what you do on PowerPoints? It's all right. We've picked it out. But you look at what stands out to you, either the text in black or the text in white. So, 5 recommendations. It's always interesting when you say to people, please try and keep it to, you know, something that you can hold in your hand, you know? You can put it on your hand. You know all of those handprints that we see around the place? Hey, so 5 things. And you can read them. You can't read that? I'll read it to you. Yeah. That's all right, we can turn around and read. Davina, can you read that? Your eyesight's better than... That's brilliant.
Formally, do you want me to read the whole thing or just
No, I'm just saying, can you read that?
Oh,
You can
mostly.
read that. Second one's database. Third is network. Again, that business about collaborations, eh? Then the last one here is about TASA's Indigenous thematic group. Can you put up your hand in the audience, please, if you have been a member of the Critical Indigenous Studies thematic group? Put it up. It's, sorry? And, oh, my relation here, because we've got the same fabric. Thank you. So can we see those people, please? Can you put up your hand? Thank you. Can you please come and yarn with me after this? Thank you. All right. So this was about mapping Indigenisation in the curricula in the universities across Australia. We're going to get to that challenge about that paradigm shift from Maggie Walter, but did you want to make some observations, a couple of observations of this?
Paradigm shift is something that First Nations people have been working on ever since the colonising process started. Joanne and I started working on it very significantly in 1984 when finally the Joh Bjelke-Petersen government stopped blocking the movements from, or the legislation from the 1967 referendum. And I think that the paradigm shift is to do with educating non-Indigenous people about blackfellas, to put it very bluntly. I know not every one of us likes to call ourselves blackfellas, but that's my term in my head for us all. And you need to know about the fact, like, I'm going to tell you my little story. My grandfather was a survivor of a massacre in 1881 at a place called Cattle Creek in far north Queensland. I found a coloniser's descendant book where he'd used his uncle's journals to write about this, and he called my people the Hodgkinson people, which means that he was writing about the Jungan people. And his ancestor took 2 of the women for himself and took anyone else who was left over, which included my grandfather, to a then colonial town, now basically a ghost town with I think about 3 inhabitants, called Thornborough in far north Queensland. And he just said, who wants these children? My grandfather was taken by Irish Catholics. He worked as their Aboriginal slave until the old fella died in 1908. He was told a whole pack of lies about how he came into their being, etc., etc. So when I did my PhD to find out where we actually came from, there was a whole web of intrigue and mistruths that I had to unravel at the same time. In 1908, when the man died, was not wanted by the woman. She went to be the head of a boarding house in Toowoomba. They'd been living at Ellera on the Southern Downs at the time, and Grandad went to Brisbane. I hope that she at least had the decency to give him some money to help him get there, because they were quite rich according to the newspaper reports on all the things that she sold so that she could move to Toowoomba without being, you know, encumbered by all their chattels. And there he worked as a butler at a place called The Mansions, which was on George Street in Brisbane. He met my Scottish nana, who was working in the kitchen. They married, lived in a couple of different places, with the attitude to Aboriginal people at the time being so bad that Grandad is reported in the newspapers as referring to himself as a Kanak, which is the name that was given to those slaves from the South Sea Islands who came out to work in the sugar canes. It was better to be a Kanak than to be an Aboriginal person. And then Grandad served in the First World War. He was offered a soldier's settlement, took that up at Deepwater Bend, and our family has always thought of that as home ever since, even though Grandad was the last of the soldiers to stay at the soldier's settlement, because the land, as often was in those days for soldier's settlement, was sour and not worth building on. My cousins, who actually bought the land the most recently, had to dig down for, I don't know how many metres, 14 metres before they could, and they didn't hit bedrock, but that was enough for the government to say, yeah, okay, you can build a house on that. And so the land's still not good, but to us it's beautiful because that's where our grandparents started the family. And they had about 9 children because they had a few that died like everyone did in those days. And my mother was the 3rd youngest of their children. Is that enough?
That, to me, that was just really showing this really good, like you started off by saying a paradigm shift is needed. And
oh,
then,
yes.
No,
Sorry.
No, Davina, seriously, what I just wanted to observe is really that you sit and you listen to that story, and we just really give that story space that's needed, isn't it? You know. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah. Like I understood what Davina was getting to. Did you understand? Yeah. Yeah. I wonder, because we're going to have to be a little bit careful with time, if we could actually just go to that paradigm shift and really just enter that part of the conversation, if that's okay. Yeah,
Well,
but reflect on this.
I think we've
as
just
well.
done a bit of that here now, actually,
Yep.
which is that the story was listened to. And that's so uncharacteristic of conferences. We listen to each other, but we've got to do it in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we express opinions, and then people express opinions to us. So there's no opinions being offered here. We've listened to the story. I think that's part of that paradigm shift.
Yeah.
It's very difficult within academic context to do that. We're not used to it at all. And as you know from doing a PhD.
Yeah.
So.
And Kim, I'm going to have to admit, I could only get every second word because I'm as deaf as a post.
But you probably got the essence of it. We listened is what the essence of it was. Yeah.
Thank you. Is that what you wanted to say about the paradigm shift challenge? Did you want to reflect on TASA, that challenge that we've got?
Well, it goes back to that kind of principle of thinking, doing, and being. Like doing, like it's not a. It's a doing process rather than the paradigm shift is, or that what we've been calling indigenisation. So it's not an observing process that you. So it's not performative in that word that you used. It's active. Yeah.
Shaun, you had a particular angle about the paradigm shift that you were interested in.
The one we've been talking about with the, it was more, it's thinking about, a much more contemporary story, Davina. Students and disconnection, and the way we teach now, and you notice in classrooms. I'd be interested to know if other people think that it's like we've engineered a world for disconnection, and I know there's other connections that emerge spontaneously that as teachers we don't have access to, we don't see, we don't observe. But in the classroom, I think disconnection is an issue for all of us as teachers. And when we've had longer sessions in a particular class that I've been teaching, I've noticed that even though people are getting tired after, it's a 4-hour class, this one, that by the last hour the connections are starting to be rebuilt. And I think one of the, from that story of disconnection, I see the question of whether yarning serves a role in reconnecting students to each other and to the learning tasks. The format of yarning is about building meaning through connection and connection through meaning. And I see that as having, we can talk about awareness and relationships and networks, but there's also ways of connecting to build meaning that yarning offers, I think, all of us as teachers. And I think it's a time, because disconnection is an issue and has been in sociology for over 100 years. But it's one we have to constantly return to, and this is a moment to look to traditional forms of forming connection and meaning and revitalising our own communities through that connection. So that's my sense of what yarning offers as an approach to teaching, as well as an ancient practice. Yeah.
It's a part of the pedagogy.
Right.
Storytelling and yarning.
And one of the things that you offered into this whole process was to say we don't have to provide an answer to this question. It could be all of these elements that come into that sense of paradigm shift. Davina, what you shared, can you see that up there somewhere? Is it? Leave the last one to me. But yeah,
I think
can you see yours up there?
Yeah.
I think it's transformative, Davina. Would you think that?
I would
It's
hope
right.
it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I went from writing the PhD to writing the book, and I've given our friends here a copy of the Meanjin from spring 2023, which is wholly written by First Nations authors. And I just think that there needs to be more of our stories, our yarns, integrated into the non-Indigenous community so that they actually know what we feel, what has impacted on us, why we feel that way, and why we think that way.
Kim, did you want to pick out something in particular?
I think the number 2, the moving from sociology, from observing things, is a good one because it does encourage a more active sense of how to make change within sociology. And it challenges the way we do sociology, which is observational and conversational. But this offers a different kind of conversational sociology, which is one that is really premised on very deep listening, I think.
Yeah.
And so I like number 2. But I will leave the 5th one to you, I think. 'Cause, yeah.
Shaun, did you want to pick up on,
I think
you know which one I'm going to, well, I'm not going to say, you're just going to speak to it, aren't you?
I think something you and I were yarning about earlier, you know, the endless nature of the conversation and not having to provide instant answers, and to see that shift in the emphasis on listening, and I think that's needed back in the classroom, and also the mind shift that it, you know, obliges us all to make. And so I like and it's funny just thinking about what you were saying, Kim, about, you know, the Q&A format of having to provide answers quickly and to respond in one format. I think yarning offers a different way of seeing the reflective process that, you know, belongs in the classroom. And I think it's, as I said before, it's not having to provide an answer for all time now that really was.
We were talking about that whole evolutionary process, you know, that we all engage in.
Yeah. Can I say something about number 5 really quickly?
You might, I'm going to turn to that on a slide, is that
Oh,
right?
okay, yeah, sure, fine.
Yeah. So, really, oh, look at that, I cut it off, never mind. Really, to me, that bottom one really speaks to some of the threads that I bring into the conversation. My surname's Schmider, which comes from an Austrian migrant father to Australia. You know, he was never going to swear allegiance to the Queen, was he? You know, so I grew up with that as well as the Aboriginal side of me. And I didn't even grow up in my country at all, but always connected back to it by visiting and that kind of thing. And from our common background in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander studies, because we really we began that kind of work way early 1980s, late 70s work, you know. Really, this is my hope. And it's it's almost like a twee presentation of the depth that I really hope for all Australians, for all of us, you know, for everybody who calls this place in any way, shape or any kind of way home, that we really reach to the ancientness, and not just that as the place on which we live, you know, that's in which we live. We're part of all of that generational wisdom that we can bring forward about how we live with country, and how, you know, we are just the current custodians. It's our job to pass on to our children and those coming forward, and society, you know, some of that sense of stewardship. And I think for me, sociology, that notion of paradigm shift can deliver with this. And you are right, thank you, Kim, for looking at your watch, because we've got just a little bit of time, and we've got something a little bit important to do. So I'm just going to say to participants, we're actually not going to do something that your abstract said. We sort of said to some of you, be on the alert, because we're going to invite you into the yarn. But we're just going to have to cut it. Time does come into play. Davina, you wanted to comment on country?
As long as I'm not cutting across what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. When I went back to far north Queensland and interacted with Gugiyalunji and Gugiyajungan peoples, I got taken by elders on country, which was a great privilege. Took all these wonderful photographs. First time nothing came out. Second time, took different equipment back to take the photographs. Second time, nothing came out. The elders said, this is the country telling you you need to come back. So when Joanne asked for photographs, that was my latest trip to Far North Queensland only 2 years ago now. Because those first 2 visits, I was not allowed to take. I mean, other slides on the machine came out as long as they weren't to do with country.
You had to make that connection.
Yeah,
Serious, eh?
yeah. It still gives me goosebumps now thinking about it all. Yeah.
You know what? Can we please find out how long a time we've got? We don't even know.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I thought we were, yeah.
Might people make it a yarn.
Well, how about we go back a little bit to that business about the paradigm shift, all right? Which really connects back to the findings and the recommendations from that research. Who we've got here, we've got Davina and I are going to say Queensland and Queensland, but Davina's been in Victoria and Davina's been in Victoria for 30 years. So we're going to say if that's Victoria and this is Queensland and New South Wales territory, that's all right?
And Victoria.
Yeah, I know. But I'm reaching out into the audience. So one of the ways in which we were going to reach out, and can we be really on microphones, please? Is there anybody from WA with us? Please get, I don't know where the roving mic is.
Here it is.
But there you go. Can you come down, please, and just pick somebody and just please share with us about these recommendations or that sense of the paradigm shift. And if you can share with us in a story way, that would be wonderful. Can you put your hand up, WA people, please? Oh, come on. I love it. Participation. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Trudy from WA, and I like what you're saying. It's wonderful because that connection is what's been eroded over the last 30 years, and a way to bring it back is to, it will need changes in you can't do this with classes of 50. You've got to have connection between people, and you've got to have time. And I get very frustrated because sometimes it's suggested that you just have one unit that you slot into the course and that does the job. But that doesn't do the job. It's every single class needs to be different in process, but also in content. But process is the bit that's got lost because we're being forced into processes that are not compatible. So my dream would be to get back to a form of education, because it has been in the past, where those processes are possible. Not to try and pretend, because you've got a line on the curriculum that says, oh yeah, you've got this unit here, or yeah, you've got this unit learning outcome there. So we'll do, half an hour in a whole course. That's not good. So that's my dream, and that's what I'd like to see happen. But it's not going to be something that they can do just by keeping the same system and slotting little tiny changes in.
Thank you. Shaun, I heard you murmuring a few times, yes, yes, yes. Can you help me hear what was being said, please? Because I find it quite difficult as well. And is it our age, Davina?
Oh, hearing.
Yeah. Is that okay? But you know, one of the other things too as well when we talk about yarning etiquette, it is about proper listening and really giving that comment time to understand what it is. So if you reflect back the comment, it helps. Did we get it right?
I think Trudy was saying...
And don't you go soft now, please.
No, sorry, I'll shout. Trudy was saying there was the direction of learning, the way we teach is moving further away from the reflective, listening, connecting, not necessarily seeking an immediate outcome, something to tick off approach. And I'm just capturing that for Joanne and Davina here. Is that? Yeah.
Thanks for your comment. And I believe that you said something about taking time. Well, I believe that, just have to reflect on the fact that 65,000 years, there's a lot for us to catch us up on. Yeah.
And vice versa. One of the things that I've been bringing into my stuff is really the combination of the diversity of knowledges. I call it all knowledges. I'd love to have about 10,000 more lifetimes. I'm going to learn about jealousy, sociology, some stage, because there's all of these threads of knowledge, in the world,
I have a room full of books at home, and at the moment I'm reading A Short History of Australia, and it is by a man called Mark McKenna, who has a foreword by Larissa Berendt. And as far as I'm concerned, I've only got through the first 60 pages, and it is brilliant because he truly looks at the shared history of Australia, which is what I was trying to do in my book. And he in my opinion, does a better job.
Thank you. So, do you want to call for somebody from South Australia?
Sure. Is there somebody from South? Look, if we can all do this, you can too. So, who's from South Australia? And then I'll ask it again. Okay. Does somebody want to respond to the?
We
yarn?
missed a couple of people this way. No, we've chosen this
Shall
way.
I call again for the hands?
No.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm learning a lot.
Can you speak up?
I'm
louder?
learning a
Thank
lot,
you.
and I think I'm really here as a learner and a listener in the process, and thinking through some of the paradigm shifts. I'm about to, with other colleagues, engage in a process looking at international migration in regional communities. One of the aspects of that, it's a whole of community approach, and it necessarily engages with Aboriginal peoples if it's whole of community. And as part of that, we have a Aboriginal colleague who's going to lead us in that aspect of the research. But I was particularly thinking of number 2 in the paradigm shift in the way we engage reciprocally and relationally. And what struck me when I was initially meeting with some Aboriginal leaders in one of the communities, towns that we're going to be involved with, they said, are you ready to hear what we have to say? And our perspective about the things that you want to talk about. It may not be what you want to hear. And I was kind of struck by that. But more importantly, realizing that process of research that we talk about takes on a whole different way of thinking and doing when we are not, we're doing something with the people and hearing and learning from them at the same time. And I think how we bring that into our research, putting on my sociology hat, how do we co-design? How do we do things with the people that we're engaging with? And I think number 2 really brings out how we're bringing those methodologies into how we do sociology. And it's making me think not only in terms of the ways we engage with Aboriginal perspectives, but how do we incorporate those principles into other aspects of our research, where those principles are so strong and important for us about being reciprocal and relational, and recognizing structures and power and the way we deal with our research, and how do we disrupt that, perhaps through some of the methodologies that we can learn in that process.
Thank you. And Andrew, it occurs to me that later on, we might have, some of what you might say and what Kim might say might talk about the paradigm shift kind of aspect to all of this, isn't it? If that's all right? Yeah. Shaun, did you want to invite somebody from ACT or Tasmania? I think that's who remains.
ACT, Tasmanians, I know you're out there.
And Yasmin.
Hello.
Yasmin, you're going to be okay? I'm going to ask you.
Would you like to?
Okay.
We'll get the microphone over to you. Yep. What was your name? Ash.
Thank you. My name's Ash, and I'm from Nipaluna, Lutuita, which is Hobart, Tasmania.
Oh, wonderful.
And home of the Palawa people. And I'm sure, like most people in the audience, we're sifting through quite a evocative and important question. And depending on what university you're in, I think we have our own ways and guidance of how we can do research differently and what our paradigm shift might be. So we've been trying recently in our university to do more collaborative co-design and really implement country and any research that's done with, by and for Aboriginal people needs to be with outcomes that matters to them. And I guess when I was thinking about all of this, one of the hard parts that we have about first thinking how we can do research differently, have that paradigm shift, is acknowledging that a lot of the people that we work with have a huge cultural load. And it's very hard to know, like, there is effort and we want to do the things right. We want to, there's momentum to do a paradigm shift. But at the same time, when you have a smaller community, it quite often relies on the guidance and support and knowledges of the same academics, the same people you work with, and the same community members. And that can be something we carry with us, acknowledging that quite often there's a lot of unpaid, unrecognised labour that comes with that. So I think, as I'm thinking about all of this, and I'm sorry if I'm not really adding anything to this, but when we are trying to do a few of these points at the same time, as a white person, is acknowledging that the people that we collaborate with are also asked all the time to collaborate and do more and more. Yeah.
Yeah, actually it is, you have added something, because I think what you've raised is, if we are talking about indigenising sociology, about paradigm shifts, then who does the work for that? Who does the work? Yeah? And if we're requiring marginalised groups to do the work of changing the way we do research, then we're just privatising our task, really. So it is a really good point to raise. And it is about cultural load, but it's also about just the principle of us recognising that if we're serious, in this case, about indigenising sociology, then we actually have to do that. We can't sort of rely on others, Aboriginal people, Torres Strait Islanders and so on, to do it for us. So actually you have added something, and it's something that we were discussing before in the pre-yarn. Yeah.
So we've got one other territory left. Did you want
Yeah.
to add that? No, well, you're repping for
Well,
the
I
Northern
halve
Territory.
the-
We've got the other territory we've got to
Well,
think
I am
about.
repping for the territory. I did halve the population of sociologists in the territory when I left, but anyway.
Oh, deadly. Do we have somebody with us from the ACT? Oh, come on. Seriously? The university's in the ACT? Ooh. Do you know, it's part of my protocol. I'm really conscious of somebody with us, and it's our protocol, hey, you know? So we are going to ask Yasmin if she would please input about this sense of, you know, the challenge for the tertiary, for the sociology discipline, you know, for the academic network, you know, what is it that we're talking about here? Are we on the right track, Yasmin? Are we on the right track? There's this one here. Come. Apparently the mics are tuned into something, I don't know. Here, Yasmin. And you introduce yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Ali, Joanne. My name's Yasmin Johnson. I'm a Waggaruba woman from Yunbinin, which is Magnetic Island in North Queensland, just off the coast of Townsville. And for me, and my space is, I've been 20 years practitioner in the social services sector, and I'm very much new to academia. I'm completing my Masters of Research. So for me, and we had this discussion the other day around relationships and how those play out in our communities and in research. And for me, that's the most critical component that we need to have an understanding around and learn about. If we don't have those relationships and those connections within the communities and the ecosystems that we work, the research is not going to be true and present and correct, I guess, in a way. So for me, it's forming those connections that are the most important. The research can come later, but once those connections in community are made, then that richness of knowledge and learning, the two-way learning, just flows freely, and being present in that is really important. And it's a learning. I mean, it's a skill that we all need to learn. But for me, building those relationships in communities are fundamental and critical in terms of the research work that anyone does with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples.
Thank you, Yasmin. So that draws me back to the sociology. What do we call this? We called it sociology on country. You know, we all work across country in all kinds of ways. Please add to that map about activity that you know that's going on within your states and territories, basically, not just your institution, your states and territories, if you would, because that becomes part of how do we pick up on that mapping the indigenisation of sociology in Australia work that TASA has initiated. And what Yasmin was saying, and Kim, you said it too, and you know, we all know. We spent a lot of time just at that first stage of this, one of three stages, if you like, to what we're doing in this keynote. And while we know we only still touch the tip of the iceberg, that whole business about building relationship takes a long time. And it is really the two-way conversations. We could have done that in a different kind of a way. And it really is about allowing the space for when things are needing to be said, isn't it, hey? Yep. So, we'll let you know, we're all kind of connected to TASA. Well, we're trying to get Davina connected to TASA, all right? This was a little agenda. So, Kim is the current president. Shaun is the conference president. Vice president, yeah. I'm the Indigenous portfolio lead we've had a couple of people helping in a research, we're not allowed to call them assistant, and I don't like, it's a team member. I always talk about the Indigenous portfolio team. Can you put up your hand if you're part of current TASA executive, please? Come on, put your hands right up, okay. So, Kim, tell the story about how this came about, not this thing here, but the mapping, Indigenisation, the strategic plan. Can you talk about that? Just
okay, so the
quickly.
engagement of TASA with taking seriously the things that we've been talking about, the indigenisation and the strategic plan that Joanne has absolutely energetically been developing this year, is not just this executive, it goes back over a number of executives, and particularly to the last executive, and I do want to make a shout out to the immediate past president, Althea Possamai-Nassidi, who really took seriously that critique from a number of very prominent TASA, Indigenous TASA members, who did not hold back, believe me, in telling us how bloody awful we were. And so I think Althea and that executive, and also the executive before, the one you were on, Dan, did a lot of work with that too. So it's been a long process, and we were talking this morning about how it is a journey that TASA's been on for quite some time, and this is some kind of culmination of that journey in some way, or the beginning of another one, I think. But I'm so happy that this is the first yarning circle that TASA's ever done. And it's a very significant moment for TASA. And past executives should be given credit for pushing it along, and also for creating the Indigenous portfolio, which we haven't had for many years. You're the first one. Yeah. So thanks, I'll shut up.
And seriously, I wouldn't have joined, I wouldn't have stayed if I didn't feel that this circle really was listening, and really, that there was so much potential for the kind of change that just brings us closer together, with that whole sense of this nation and our past and where we want to go. So I'm actually going to just make way here at the moment. Andrew, would you come and take this, and you and Kim talk about what we're going to do? I don't want you to get them, I'll go and get them. With Penny, are you around? Penny? No, I'll find it, I'll bring them, and if you two can talk about what it is that we are doing. Oh, hello, Sammy. Hello, Sammy. No, you stay there. You stay there. Seriously, can I also please acknowledge, Sally, seriously, I would not have stayed, I would not be so intrinsically involved without that incredible I can't say that incredible person, without the incredible Sally. No, you stay here, all right? And no, Andrew, come on, I'll do it. And he's disappeared. Andrew, can I hand you my microphone? No, you sit down. You start, please, Kim. Tell us what it is that we are doing.
What we're now doing is moving out of the yarn and into a kind of announcement or celebration of the fact that TASA has entered into a memorandum of understanding with the National Centre for Reconciliation, Truth and Justice at Federation Uni. And part of that, and this is Professor Andrew Gunston, who heads that centre. You can say something in a moment. Emma J. Gavin was going to be here, but as we heard, she's unable to be here. Is also a professor there. That's all right, make lots of noise. And part of that agreement is that we will work collaboratively with the centre to collaboratively coordinate the Critical Indigenous Studies thematic group. So TASA is actually sort of reaching out to others with more knowledge than us of the processes we want to be involved in, and hopefully bringing collaborative effort between us to build the kind of paradigms that we've been talking about. Over to you, Andrew.
Hi everyone. I'd also like to begin by acknowledging the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung peoples, the Kulin Nation, as traditional owners on the lands that we're speaking on today, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. Really excited to be here. For the National Centre for Reconciliation, Truth and Justice, for those who don't know, it's a relatively new centre. We've been in operation for about 2.5 years. We have a number of key Indigenous leading academics from across Australia working on country, as well as a very esteemed advisory board with people like Jackie Huggins, Commissioner Sue Ann Hunter and many others on that board. We're doing a lot of research. We also do a lot of advocacy work. So we work very closely with the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria, Euro Justice Commission, as you know, our interstate colleagues. Victoria is the first state to have addressed all three elements from the Uluru Statement from the Heart and Voice Treaty and Truth, as we've now signed the first treaty in the country just a couple of weeks ago, which is extremely exciting. So we're doing a lot of advocacy, outreach and education work as well as research. So yeah, we're really delighted to be partnered with TASA. I do really want to acknowledge the work of Joanne and also MJ and the great work they've done, and just give it a shout out to MJ, and just we're all thinking of her and we're all hoping she recovers very well. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Andrew. So I think we're winging this, of course, so I think we're going to sign something, aren't we? Are we ready to sign?
So do you know what we didn't do? Because we didn't have it at the time. We didn't get a screenshot of the MOU.
Oh, okay.
So this is one of two that will be signed. Here, we'll put it up so everybody can see it after that. It's you two. No, you two are the people who are signing this.
Okay.
Because what did you say before about the allyship?
Yeah, okay,
Okay,
good.
Mr. Wills.
Yep, thanks for that.
You have to read it, I think, to people too. And you need to sign facing the audience. Sorry, we forgot to take a photo of what it looks like so you could see what they're signing, but they're going to read it so you know.
Okay, Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, between the Australian Sociological Association, TASA, the National Centre for Reconciliation, Truth and Justice. The parties enter into this agreement as equal partners to co-lead activities that support Indigenous-led sociology, with particular focus on the governance and development of the critical Indigenous studies thematic group. This collaboration aligns with shared commitments to truth-telling, justice, self-determination and structural reform.
See, I told you there's stories everywhere, so there's a story about why the suitcase is here. But guess what? Can't find it. Who helped Andrew with setting up the stand?
The second one was just near the banner. There was a second one of these near the banner. That's fine. Not one. So should we hold this for
So, there we go. We're still, anyway, as we are closing, because, we've all got those time commitments, we could take a little bit longer. Can we please say thank you to Jessamy for this wonderful record of this discussion that we've got. Just brilliant. And a videographer, thank you for that. And a photographic recorder as well, thank you for that so much. I really want to acknowledge Sally and Penny, and Penny's mum sewed this, just for this. And Kim, this is Valkyrie, Brennan. Yeah, yeah. So, and thank you so much to Andrew for coming here as well, and for all of that. Thank you to all of you. You know, seriously, yarning is a long process. It's a rich process. It can go down all kinds of avenues, pathways. Purposeful yarning, research yarning absolutely gets you there. Pedagogical yarning is what you were both talking about. Thank you, everybody.